All right, everybody, welcome to BO Boys for Friday, May 19th. Fuck it, it's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat. Clayton, it's the weekend preview episode, and we have a huge summer movie opening this weekend. And there is some doubt about where this franchise is and just how big this opening will be. Of course, we're talking about the opening weekend of Fast X, the 10th film in the Fast and Furious saga, the 11th film if you count the spin-off Hobbs and Shaw.
Which I
But
don't.
well, it is part of the franchise, but it's not part of the saga, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. So we could say this is the 10th film in the saga. And I mean, this is going to be really interesting because I don't know, this is the most expensive by far movie in the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Reports are that this ballooned up to 350 million, maybe 400 million. There's a lot of numbers out there. Of course, it was filmed in COVID protocol time, so that adds a lot of cost to things. But it's also a movie where the cast keeps getting more and more expensive, the stunts get more and more expensive, but the audience itself might be dwindling. And those are two lines: costs going up, audience going down. That is not where a franchise wants to be. So Clayton, you've always been a Fast and Furious guy. This is your family, this is your familia. You
Yeah.
love, you're from the stacks, you're from the plains, and you've always connected with this franchise and this series. How are you feeling going into Fast X weekend? Are you energized? Are you done with this franchise? Where are you and your familia at?
Well, I think I said previously that after 9,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of took the wind out of my sails a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Being not a huge fan of Jason Momoa, this addition to the cast does not excite me
Mm-hmm.
in a way that Cena did initially, and then we realized Cena's character is humorless and therefore not a good use of his persona,
Right.
right? So that was a huge downturn for F9. That was the huge, like, kind of, huh? Why are we making Cena this guy when we could make him closer to a Tyrese character, right?
Yes, yes, a peacemaker type character. Yeah.
And he might become that. I mean, that would
Mm-hmm.
be smart if you do that. If you change him into more of a goofball, then I think he'll fit this franchise a little bit better. But, we're hearing buzz, obviously. By this point, it's an open secret that The Rock is involved in this movie in some way, probably like at the end in a post-credit tag or something like that.
That's the rumor, is that
That's the
it's that
rumor.
level of involvement. Yeah.
Yeah, which I'm not necessarily excited about as a viewer, but I think for the franchise, it's a smart move. For The
Mm,
Rock, it's a smart move.
mhm.
I would say I'm hearing. I mean, we had Eric Weber on the show just a couple days ago, and he
Yep.
saw it and was very excited for it. So that
Yes.
that helps me get a little bit more excited when somebody actually sees it and gives it a good review.
Mhm.
But I'm also hearing bad things about this movie from people who normally like it. So
Mhm.
I'm up in the air with this one. I do think they're running a little bit on fumes here, and I think it's going to show in the opening weekend.
Wow. Okay. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I think the big thing is that the last movie, Fast 9, was one of the least liked movies in the franchise. If
Hmm.
you I would say you'd have to go all the way back to Tokyo Drift, which has been reclaimed now, but at the time obviously was not beloved, opened the lowest of any of the movies in the franchise. I don't think there's been a Fast movie since then. Fast 9 is the least liked by the fans, I think, since that third movie.
Yeah.
And it did feel, coming off of this one, that a lot of people who it lost a lot of casual fans, I think.
Yes.
I think you could look back to this franchise, and Fast 5 is the movie that gained a ton of casual fans where listen, The Rock came in and he was franchise Viagra and he supercharged this franchise around the world with Fast Five, and it kept picking up fans, kept picking up fans. Of course, Furious 7 was the apex of this series, but Fate of the Furious held pretty well. But the last movie, Fast 9, I think lost a lot of people. And the question is going to be, will this franchise keep losing people? Or is this one where they could do a little bit of a mini reset and gain some more casual moviegoers back? I mean, on the John Cena question, I do think the rumors are out there that his character does a big shift and is more of a comedic good guy in this movie. You know, that's the way Eric Weber made it sound when he was telling us about this movie on the last episode. So that's a smart move, though. The thing is, it's hard to tell something like that from the promotion of this movie because
Yeah.
there's so much going on. There's so many characters now. It is really hard to know what any one character is up to heading into one of these movies because we have to keep track of at least a dozen characters. So
Yeah.
that to me is what makes this hard to even feel like any kind of reset. Because in the promotion materials, other than Jason Momoa is in this now, it's just impossible to get a feel for what this movie is going to be.
Yeah. And you also have the addition of Brie Larson, which we don't know how much she's in this actual movie, and Alan Ritchson, who is the Jack Reacher from the Amazon series, that is an actor that I really enjoy. He's also in
Wow.
this film, but it looks like
And he's a giant, right? Is he a legitimate like 7'4" person?
no,
Is he
I don't think he's as big as
he's
the
not
actual
my
Jack
giant.
Reacher. No, but
Okay.
he's not Tom Cruise, who is not the size of Reacher.
So
So,
he's somewhere between 5'2" and 7'2".
yes, he is somewhere in that range, right?
Right,
Which
right,
is where
right,
you want your Reacher to be on the high end of that, most,
right. Or just your person in
optimally.
general. Yeah.
Yes. But he's a guy, you see him in the commercial and, he's got a popular Amazon series, but also it's like he could be in the movie for 5 minutes,
Yeah.
right? So we
Yeah.
don't know. I wouldn't call him a value add, obviously, but when I saw him, I perked up. I was like, "Oh, that's cool. He's getting big movie parts." Because
Right.
the guy was on Blue Mountain State. The guy was
Right.
he was in those he was in one of those HBO Max DC series, right? So this is a
Okay.
guy who has leveled up because of Reacher. So good on him.
Right.
Everybody should want to be in movies, and now he is in a legitimate blockbuster movie or tentpole movie. So
Right.
good
Right.
for him. So I'm excited for that. But again, Momoa, I think he's getting good reviews as this character that he's
Mhm.
playing. But for me, he's not a butts in the seats guy. He's not a value add for me. He's a guy who's got to prove it that he's entertaining to me because I've seen
Okay.
him in nothing that I've enjoyed other than Aquaman.
Right.
And I
Right.
would say I enjoyed Aquaman as much as you can, one of those, DCU movies.
Well, the buzz is, I mean, listen, Eric Weber on our last episode compared his performance to Gary Oldman in The Professional, which is a great pull. And The Professional is obviously not a box office mega hit from back in the 90s, but you get what he means when you say that type of villain. That's very
Mhm.
showy. You know, you imagine a villain who walks into a room while parting an array of beads,
Mhm.
beads hanging from a door frame, and he walks through that with a big smile. That's that type of villain. And this franchise needs something like that. It needs something that people come out of it saying, that was fun.
Yeah.
That guy was fun. And I think Momoa could pull it off. I think he has to. I do think the success of this movie rides on there being something new that people are going to point to and say, this was a value add. This franchise needs a value add.
It's
And
stale.
because otherwise
Yeah.
it's stale. Yeah.
It is. I think we can definitively say that this is a stale franchise at the moment,
At the
right?
moment, yes. I can't imagine even the most hardcore defender of the Fast movies, the guy who visits the real house once a week, holds up a Corona, pours it out of his car, keeps driving, cries as he passes the house weekly. Even that guy has to admit this franchise is a little stale right now.
and probably has a few reservations going into this movie, but I think what we're gonna see here, optimally or best case for this movie, is a Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 situation, where
Okay.
it opens lower than some of the previous entries. I mean, it's tracking to open lower than F9, which
Wow.
came out during
Wow.
COVID times, right?
Wow. Oh yeah, that was the movie, one of the movies back. That
Yeah.
was early summer 2021 when people were just starting to get vaccinated and movie theaters had vaccine policies. That
Mhm.
is a time when you really could chalk up this one bomb due to COVID type situation. So yes, continue. It's crazy that this movie is projected to open lower than that.
But, that's the thing, it's that opened to 70, this is tracking lower than that. I see the highest I'm seeing for this is in the mid-70s, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it almost definitively is going to open lower than the last one, right?
Wow.
But you could see a smaller drop on this than usual because the hardcore fans are going to go see it this weekend no matter what, right?
Mhm.
But it's how many are still out there. That's the
Right,
question.
right,
What is
right.
the core audience for this? Because the thing with all the other Fast and Furious movies is, like you said, you're going to get the Joe Schmoes who are like, oh, I'll give this a flyer, or my friends really like this, or I heard about this, or whatever, or like, oh, Cena's in this, so I'm going to go see it. And those casual fans may not come out for this the
Mhm.
way a normal one would have them. So we're going to kind of see what this core is and then see how that word of mouth will travel back to those casual fans and what they're going to do.
Right,
Now,
right. I'm looking at the history of this franchise,
yeah.
and
Are you looking at the box office pro
well,
rundown?
I'm looking at a numbers collection of just the
Okay.
history of the franchise, and trying to figure out what that core is. My thought would have been the core audience is the Fast and Furious 2009 audience. That's the fourth movie in the franchise. That's the
The
one where Vin has come back, but The
mhm.
Rock isn't there yet. And that opened to $70 million domestic, which is
Yeah.
the same number basically that F9 opened to in COVID June of 2021. They both opened to 70.
Yeah.
And that almost feels like that's what the core is. I mean, you could say the core is the opening weekend of the sequel, Too Fast, Too Furious. That was 50 million. That maybe is the core because by the time you get to Fast Five, that's The Rock is in there as the co-star. He's supercharging it franchise Viagra, and you're up to 86 million domestic opening weekend. So that's
I
above the core. The
I think
core is somewhere between 50 and 70, I guess.
Yeah, I would be closer to your take on it with Fast and Furious 2009 because that had all the elements other than The Rock in it, right?
Right,
It
right.
had it had all the other. Didn't that one have, I don't know if it had actually,
Well, it had
did it
Paul
have
Walker. It had Michelle Rodriguez.
did it but
It
did it
didn't
have
have Tokyo Drift elements, I don't think.
but I'm saying, did it have Tyrese and did it have Ludacris? It may not have had those. Those may have been added later.
Right. But I mean that is here's the thing. If we're looking at the core being 70 million, then
Mhm.
that means that the last movie, Fast 9, that fell to the core. And if this falls below 70 million, then we're talking about core audience members are leaving this franchise, not just the casuals, not just the people who go see a big, big movie because it's a big, big movie.
Yeah.
Now we're starting to have the family leaving this franchise.
But the thing is, Pat, you gotta remember, and I think people forget this
People
when they're,
die.
well, that you always go to death, but there is a long legacy to this franchise in the sense that the first movie came out in June 2001, a
Wow.
completely different time. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a franchise that has spanned over 20 years, which
Yes.
in pop culture is insane. So
Yeah.
anytime we talk about MCU going down and there people losing interest, it's like that's another series. I mean, the Iron Man was 2008. It's 2020. It's 2023 right now.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to understand that pop culture moves, and the fact that pop culture moves so fast now, and that these sorts of franchises and these sorts of companies, like even Pixar. When I say Pixar has lost its commercial interest, people freak the fuck out. How
Right.
can you say that? Pixar. That's, I mean, we're talking mid 90s that
30 years.
started.
Yeah. That's Pixar's 30 years.
30 years. Tell me anything else that's lasted 30 years and been as successful. I am giving these things their accolades, but you have to understand that culture moves away from these things. Culture moves away from Pixar. Culture moves away from Marvel, and culture could be moving away from Fast and Furious, and that's nothing against this franchise that has had pretty much nothing but success other than Tokyo Drift.
Right, right. And again, Jason Momoa is key here because he's the value add. And is he the guy that's going to keep the newer, younger audience interested or gain that newer, younger interest in this? As opposed to, I'm gonna see if you could
I know
guess who my
exactly who you're
suggestion
going
is.
to say.
This movie needed a YouTuber to capture the imagination of the younger audience. So Clayton, who do you think they should have cast as the showy villain part in Fast X?
Logan Paul.
Logan Paul.
As soon as you said young,
Yeah,
fresh, Logan Paul, because here's the thing. He has been tearing it up in WWE.
tearing it up. Yeah,
He is a physical freak of nature,
yeah,
right? Athletically.
right,
You get him in there, you get him fighting with Vin, you get him
right.
fighting with Tyrese, you get him fighting with Alan Richardson. That is a
And you get,
movie, I would say.
yep, yep. And you get him making YouTube videos, making
Yes.
TikToks, promoting this film.
His
You have him jump
character,
off the roof of the Man's Chinese Theater at the premiere.
his
And he's
character
holding his phone the whole time, and that video gets 4 billion views. And a small percentage of those views go to see this movie. Boom, you're back over $100 million domestic opening weekend.
And his character could be an evil YouTuber. He could be fighting Vin and taking selfie shots.
Right,
Like,
right,
I think that's because that's a hateable character. That's a guy, he knows how to play the heel, right?
right,
But
right,
he's a charismatic, magnetic presence. That is a value add. That is a value add. Momoa is so old to try and break him in this way because
right.
the guy was on Baywatch Hawaii. I mean, people forget this guy's in his 60s.
Wow. Talk about a franchise that didn't survive as long as the Fast and Furious saga. He started on Baywatch. That's incredible. The thing about Momoa with this franchise is, even if he's great in it, I don't
Yeah.
see where he's bringing in a different audience than what
Mhm.
Vin already has, than what Statham already has, than what this franchise already has.
Exactly.
He's he's not a younger version of this same audience.
Mhm.
He is just this audience, same age group, same people, as opposed to, say, again, for example, a Logan Paul who brings in at least a younger version of this audience. So
Yeah.
I think that's the problem with casting a Jason Momoa, is he's just bringing in the same people who are already the hardcores of this franchise, and he's bringing in a smaller percentage of them because, other than Aquaman, he's not a guy who has a bunch of hits on his resume.
Oh,
So
and yeah, this just in fact checked. He is actually only 43 years old, which might
okay,
as well be 60 though. I
right,
mean, it might as
right,
well be 60.
right, right. So Yeah, it's a tough it's a tough thing to predict this going higher because we just don't see what the value add is. And again, you briefly mentioned Brie Larson. I don't think you can factor her in at all because the promotion of this movie does not center on her in any way. I mean, it really feels from the promotion. Listen, she may be in every frame of this film,
Mhm.
but based on the promotion, I would assume she is in one or two scenes. So there is no way that people are going to go to this movie because of her because the advertising does not make it seem like she is a big part of this movie.
And it's weird, her persona is very interesting, right now, and I don't know if that's, like, anybody's gonna go see this movie because of her. I don't know if people will avoid it because of her. I mean, nobody's gonna be
No,
like, "I won't see this movie because of Brie Larson." It's like, you have
no,
so many
that's not happening.
other yeah, you have so many other elements, right, to enjoy
Right.
in this. But I think she definitely isn't bringing people in. I couldn't see her being somebody who someone would say like, "Oh, I wanna see this movie because of Brie Larson," which
Well,
is
I mean,
why you add somebody.
here's the thing we could be sleeping on. We're talking about this movie needed to bring in a YouTuber, it needed to bring in Logan
She
Paul.
is a YouTuber.
She has basically transitioned from being an actress, an Oscar-winning actress, to being a sort of fitness uh, uh, practitioner, a fitness expert on social media. So we may be sleeping on the fact that she has a big YouTube and Instagram audience, and they just want to see her work out in this movie. We're,
Mhm.
we're sort of judging her on her movie star stardom, and maybe we should be judging her on her YouTuber stardom. Maybe she's that YouTuber that this franchise needed. But I don't think, I mean, listen, again, we're not super into that world. So I don't think she's at that level in the YouTube
Mhm.
scene, but maybe she is, and maybe that is going to be the key.
Yeah. Who
So all that said, like you said, the projections for this basically put it lower than Fast Nine and put it opening around what the spinoff Hobbs and Shaw did in
ugh.
summer of 2019. So this is also a big weekend for The Rock because if you're The Rock, do you want this movie to open really low? Like open
Mhm.
55 million, so it opens below Hobbs and Shaw, and then it
No.
really feels like they need him for this
No,
next
because he's
movie.
in it. He's in it. If it is true and
Right,
the rumors are true that he is at the end of this movie, he wants this movie to open big because Marvel movies used to open big because they had stingers, right?
right, right, right,
And if he's the stinger, if he's the Captain America shield in the ice, right?
right,
Then he's gonna want that to make this open larger. There's
right,
no scenario in which he wants this movie to not be a success because he's doing so poorly that people would say the reason it bombed is because you were in the end of it.
right, 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 right. Yeah,
He
and
does
again,
not get a pass anymore. He does not get an assumption of success. He gets an assumption of failure now. So
wow,
this movie doing bad is bad for The Rock.
wow.
Absolutely.
I mean, the thing is, we're not considering this a spoiler because the studio clearly wanted that information out there. They released this information weeks ago. They released it to the trades. They've
They
had
asked for
reports
it.
written about it. They want people to know that The Rock is a stinger in this movie. That's again, we're not considering a spoiler because it's baked into the promotion of this movie.
Yeah.
So a poor opening weekend for this movie is also another misfire for Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you're
He should be
saying.
sweating. He should be sweating all weekend, and not from his workout and not from
Right,
his cheat day of eating 16 pizzas and
right,
18 lava cakes. He should be
right,
sweating because if this movie opens under 60,
right.
okay, which is a possibility,
Wow.
what does he do?
Right, right. I mean, he's in the next one no matter what. Here's the thing, if this movie, because I don't see this franchise or at this point or this movie having a Guardians of the Galaxy 3 type situation where it opens low and then the second weekend is a 50% hold. That's not going to happen for this franchise. It could leg out better than the last movie, but I
Mhm.
don't see it having some kind of, because it's also doesn't have the reviews of
Yeah,
Guardians 3. You know, Guardians 3, the thing that helped with that hold is everyone saying it's great. And that's not going to
yeah.
happen with this movie. And so if this has a bad opening weekend, then you're in a situation where you're going to make the next movie. And they've announced supposedly that there's two more sequels coming after this, not just
Which I
one.
was I don't understand why you would do that. The only thing you have going for this is that it's building up to a big finale. I think
Yeah,
that is as dumb as you could possibly be.
I mean, and in a worst case scenario, this opens in the 50s, then I think you've got a Universal Studios that is rethinking, what do we do at all going forward? You
Mhm.
know, do we have to make a final movie on the cheap if this
Yeah,
opens in the 50s? So there's no other movies opening this weekend.
no,
Nothing of consequence, at least. I don't even think there's any Charlie Day level movies opening against Fast X this weekend.
no.
So this is the only newbie. Of course, Guardians is the big holdover, and it had that historic hold in its second weekend. So that is still a juggernaut out there. I mean, that's the other thing to keep in mind this weekend is you got Guardians, you got Mario, you got two big blockbuster movies that audiences love. They may choose to finally see Guardians 3 or just see those movies again rather
Yeah.
than see a middlingly reviewed Fast X.
I mean, when you just look at some of the headlines that if you do like a search for this movie, I
Hmm.
mean, you're getting headlines like another idiotic Fast and the Furious movie. That's from the New York Post.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Or
usually the Post
CNN
is a voice of the people.
running on fumes.
Yeah, it's an
that
easy one to
is
go to, though.
of course, but that's the thing is like, listen, these people get paid like
LA
half a
Times is the
cent per
franchise out of gas.
exactly. Like, I mean, these are all things that you can go to if you have to write 16 articles, some of them on fashion, some of them on music, some of them on politics, and you're making half a penny per 10 words, right? I mean,
Right,
that's
right,
what you're going to come up with.
right,
Okay.
right.
But that creates a narrative with people who are clicking to see showtimes or looking online to look at reviews. That's what's in people's minds now. This is a franchise on fumes. And so it is going to be the core that comes out this weekend. And
Yeah,
we will see if it can build from that.
yeah, yeah. So,
But it's a crowded I mean, in Austin, we got another great email from Austin, as we always do.
would you like to go over
He's
that?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing to take from that for me is,
Mhm,
like, he thinks it's gonna get lost. This is a sequel that is gonna get lost in all of this summer, hullabaloo, which we're all
mhm,
excited about all these other movies and not really Fast X. Fast X feels like a bit of an afterthought, you know?
mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah, he's sort of predicting for his numbers, I mean, it kinda looks like he's thinking
He
it's
said
gonna get past
61.
60, 61, but then he thinks the next movie is gonna be a lot bigger because of The Rock. I mean, my thought is if this opens low in the
Mhm.
60s, I do listen, they're gonna make that next one, but I do think then this is a franchise that will fully keep declining. I don't see if this one doesn't do it, I don't think the next movie opens bigger than this one. I think then we're in a full movie by movie decline.
Yeah,
And
most likely, but I mean, the thing is like, as I said, what do you expect? This thing is 20 plus years old. I don't see this I mean, I don't see this getting into the 70s. So it's
wow.
gonna open in the 60s.
Wow.
Dude,
I
it's
mean,
gonna open in the 60s. It's gonna open in the 60s.
wow. I mean, do we want to do our predictions right now, our top 5
Yeah,
predictions?
let's do
We
it.
have a few other emails we could check on, but we got
Let's do
Austin's.
that at the end. Let's get to the predictions here.
Okay, so look, go for it, Clayton. You're the Fast and Furious guy. Give us your top 5 for Fast X opening weekend.
Okay, Fast X number 1 slam dunk. I mean, at
Yeah,
least it's a slam
slam dunk.
dunk number 1.
Yep.
I, in all good conscience, cannot say this is going to make less than Hobbs and Shaw opening weekend.
Mhm.
I won't do
Mhm.
it. Even if I believe it will be in the 50s, I will not give The Rock the satisfaction that that movie with that character's name in it is
Right.
going to make more than a in in saga
Right.
fast movie.
Right.
So my call is $63 million is what this
Okay.
is going to open at.
Okay.
$63 million for Fast
Okay.
X. Number 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I think that's also another slam dunk.
Mhm.
I don't think the hold is going to be as good here. So I'm going to say high 20s. Still a
Okay.
good hold for this thing, which will be in the 50s,
Yep.
but I don't think it's going to be in the 40s or the 30s or anything like that.
Okay.
And listen, if it does, good for James Gunn and good for Chris Pratt
Yep.
and good for Batista
Yep.
and good for everybody involved in that movie. Number 3, Super Mario Brothers. I think that's also a slam dunk. Number 4, Book Club, The Next Chapter. Even though it is a
Mhm.
failure, there's really nothing else out right now
Right.
other than Evil Dead Rise, which is going to be my number 5. Which, listen, this thing is making a tidy sum. And it's probably going to go on to PVODs. I think it's on PVOD, premium video on demand right now. It's probably going to switch over onto free streaming at a certain point. So not free, but you know what
But
I
to
mean,
Max.
subscription.
It'll be on
Yeah,
Max.
yeah, and that's listen, this was a great run for this movie. So that's my top 5.
So my top 5, of course, Slam Doink, Fast X, number 1. I'm going 74 million. I think it's going to make more than the COVID summer one. All that said, my thinking is if it doesn't make more than the movie that opened in June of 2021, then this franchise is fully in free fall.
But
So
Pat,
so
that was one of so few options. Like that's
I
the thing is that's the
I
right
get it,
reason
but
that opened that big.
the potential audience is so much bigger here in May of 2023 than it was in June of 2021. And
Yeah.
so that's where I think if this makes in the 60s, then we are full on looking at a franchise in free fall. If it makes in the 50s, then you're throwing into question whether the next one gets made. Not the next one will get made, but I think if this opens in the 50s, the next movie will absolutely be the final Fast and Furious movie. So that's my prediction there. So I think it will get to the 70s, just based on the potential audience. So we'll see there.
Mhm.
Number 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I'll just pick a clean 50% drop. So that does 31 million. Super Mario Brothers is number 3. Book Club next chapter. I was about to say Next Generation, but
Mhm. Well, that'd be interesting.
yeah. So
That
then
that would be like so they're just gonna reboot it with really young people.
yeah, then it's Book Club The Next Generation, Emma Stone, Jennifer Lawrence, Zazie Beetz. Yeah,
Oh my god. I
that's
mean,
your next
listen.
generation of book club. So
Oh.
we'd give that a whirl. So that's number 4. And number 5, I'm doing it. I, are you there, God? It's me,
Oh,
Margaret.
you're
Jumps over Evil
insane.
Dead Rise. The drops have been lower for Margaret than they have been the last few weeks for Evil Dead. And I think that Evil Dead audience has got so many choices up top. They're going to see Fast X this weekend. The Margaret audience is less served by
No, the
this new
Margaret
movie.
audience has Book Club The Next Chapter.
But they don't have Book Club The Next Generation. So
Ah,
I think
you're
that's where you
insane.
get that Margaret audience. I think that's
Is this
number
because
5.
you want Amy Adams to succeed? We all want Amy Adams to succeed, but dude,
Amy Adams is not in Margaret. That's
this is a
Rachel
dead
McAdams.
movie.
That's Rachel McAdams.
Oh, that's right, Rachel McAdams.
Yeah. So that's
That
my top
it's
5.
dude,
That is
that
my
movie's
top 5.
deader than the mom than Mommy in Evil Dead.
Wow. So, well, what you're saying then is that it will rise because that mommy rises. The mommy in Evil
Yeah, but
Dead
only
rises.
that mommy rises. I'm the mommy that rises. No one else.
Well, we'll see this weekend. That is, of course, the big thing everyone's going to be paying attention to this weekend is what ranks at number 5, Margaret or Evil Dead Rise. We will
That'll
see.
be the big story.
So let's see some
Let's
quick
dip into the
emails.
mailbag.
So we got our good friend Danny of I Screen You Scream 4 movies. Just want to
Number
give his
4.
prediction. Number 4, 4 movies, of course. He writes, seeing Fast X Thursday night, truly excited for the ensemble cast, particularly the non-butts in the seats Aquaman star Jason Momoa. And to cap this off, whatever your predictions go, lower or not, boys, well, guess what? I'm gonna get nuts to race you both and say the 60 to $70 million opening weekend is a load of BS. So I am predicting this will overperform and make $100 million opening weekend. So I love that bold prediction from Danny of I Scream, You Scream for number
The number
4
4.
movies. He's predicting 100 million domestic opening weekend for Fast X.
Listen, I'd be happy. I mean, that would
Oh,
break
would
all the
love it.
models then at this point where we would be
Yes.
looking forward to what is Mermaid going to do? Is Mermaid going to
Yes.
do 200 million? You
Yes.
know, is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning going to do 300 million opening? Like that would break the models. So hey, if
Yep.
it breaks the models, then let's do it. But I
Yep.
don't see it happening, unfortunately. Let's give a shout out to Marcus, one of BO Boy Marcus, who is
Yes.
our anime expert.
Mm-hmm.
Now he nailed his previous prediction for Crunchyroll film. Now
Yep.
this is a movie that opened, I believe, last weekend. We
Yep.
didn't talk about it because it was very small. It was Sony's Knights of the Zodiac, which was
Mm-hmm.
actually a live action adaptation.
Wow.
And it was big in Brazil, where he lived for a long time, and he had zero popularity in the US. So he basically said Box Office Pro was saying 1 to 4, and he went with $500,000. Well, guess what? Kings of the Zodiac opened to $535,000. So
Wow.
he nailed it again. Another reason why Marcus has his bona fides as our anime expert, Marcus. Sometimes we don't get to the movies because this is summer and this is some big movies are going to overshadow, but always send us these updates on these smaller, anime adjacent or Crunchyroll films. We
Mm-hmm.
love it. We love having your expertise. Again, this is a blind spot for us, but it ain't no blind spot for Marcus. Marcus knows what he's talking about.
Wow. And I mean, just to put things in perspective, this Knights of the Zodiac that we didn't talk about, that opened last weekend higher than Charlie Day's Fool's Paradise.
Yeah.
Opened
Well,
higher than that, over $100,000 higher. So let that sink in. So I'll read one more email. We got an email from wannabe oh boy Eric. So Eric had some info about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. He writes, Dear BO Boys, rumors are that test screenings of Dead Reckoning are going over like gangbusters. The trailers promise an epic scope and importance to this entry in the series. It'll only have the premium screens briefly, but I think July's movie hubbub with Barbie and Oppenheimer will benefit Tom and not hurt him. All of the movie talk may get more people to go to the movies, and there could be people who don't want to see Barbie or Oppenheimer and pick Mission Impossible instead. I predict the word of mouth will be so good that it ends as one of the top summer movies. Fallout opened to 61 million. Maverick opened at 126. I see Dead Reckoning starting at 115 and doing well from there. This email will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Eric. Great intel from Eric that these screenings are going over. And listen, that is the big thing that happened with Maverick last year, is that the movie was legitimately great. and the word of mouth was off the charts. And if that could happen for Dead Reckoning, again, we got overhyped on the Flash, perhaps, and some other
Mhm.
movies with Jeff Bach on our summer movie preview episode. And I think our big mistake, or not a mistake, but a thing that we didn't do quite as right, is that we didn't have Dead Reckoning in our top domestic top fives. And I think Eric is going to be proven right that this movie is going to be gigantic.
He also added another great point. Part of the post Maverick glow is that Maverick's very long theatrical window has calibrated audiences
Mm.
towards understanding that you're supposed to see Tom Cruise movies at the theater, which is very important, which is
Yep.
something that something like Pixar is going to be fighting against
Yes.
when it comes to Elementals, right? Now, we will not talk about Dead Reckoning and what it's going to do at the box office here because obviously it's far out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I do think this is going to be the biggest one. But I also think that Maverick and Mission Impossible audience crossover is not as big as people are claiming it's going to be. But we'll get to that. I
We'll
still am
get
very
to that.
excited for this movie, and I still think it's going to be huge,
Yeah.
obviously. And it's going to be another reason why we need more PLFs
Yes.
because it is insane that Dead Reckoning will not be able to get a run of weekends upon weekends in the largest formats possible.
Yes. 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 That by your second weekend, you will have no option but to watch that motorcycle jump on a normal screen.
Yeah.
That is, you know, uh, Clayton, you and I are always talking about what's great with this country, but one of the things that is wrong with this country is that there are
Mhm.
not enough premium screens. So,
Absolutely.
um, yeah, so this is going to be a huge weekend. We're going to be back on Monday morning with our takes on what the numbers were this weekend. I'm not going to say a name, but I'm just going to say we may have a very, very special guest on this next
Mhm.
episode. The deals are in the works, and forget about The Rock being a stinger at the end of Fast X. We've got a real giant star who may be on
Oh,
the
he's
next episode
box
of Deal.
office analysis Viagra.
Yes, yes. So we're working on the deal, and that
Mhm.
may happen on the next episode. So
I don't know why I said Viagra weird, but I was trying to say Viagra.
right,
So,
right. Well, you
it's raw
you
feed.
that's how they pronounce the brand that you purchase.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's 3 E's, Veegra.
right, right. But they say it does the same thing. It's Viagra guts.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
made with
It's
Viagra
got
guts.
all the it's got all of the stuff in it that you need and a lot of stuff you don't need.
Exactly. That basically what you take, they promise will make something big.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of it moves around. It's a
Right.
crapshoot, but
Right.
sometimes when it nails it, it nails it. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yep. So I think we've done it. Obviously, email us. We love getting your emails, theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. Give us your predictions. Give us your boots on the ground reporting, what you're hearing at test screenings. We love to read your emails, theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on social media at the BO Boys Pod. Of course, we want to BO intern Christopher is killing it running our social media with the video clips. Go to our Twitter, and you get a lot of great excerpts from our last episode with Eric Weber. So thank you, want to BO intern Christopher at the BO Boys Pod. We are YouTubers, much like Brie Larson and Logan Paul. We are YouTubers. So go down there, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. The most recent episode with Eric Weber of Midnight Movie Talk is on our YouTube channel. So see the faces behind the voices on YouTube. Give us 5 stars on all platforms, but especially on Apple Podcasts. Leave us reviews and tell your friends to listen to the BO Boys. Spread the gospel of the BO Boys. We are more important now than ever before. With all of these movies opening, your friends and family need to be listening to this show.
Yes. Yes. If you want to be able to talk around the water cooler, then you need to be listening to our show.
Yes. Yes. So I think we've done it, Clayton.
We definitely have done it, Pat, and I don't think there's anything left to say.
No.
Except for until next time.
Will
We'll
smell
smell
you
you
at
at the
the box
box
office.
office. Nailed it.
Nailed it.